Well, hey there guys, hope you all are doing well in your current time of self-isolation. As I'm sure you guys are all aware, Corona-chan is still making her rounds around humanity, so be sure to not touch your fucking face. Additionally, I'm going to start branching out from the normal D&D stories you may find on /TG and make my way to my old homeland of 4chan. The land of commandos and rifles and guns and tracking down deer to harvest their estrus. I'm talking about /K. Now in my stint on /K, I kind of invented a background story for basically rifle girls, and I call them Waffegeist. It all came about when I got a little bit smashed on vodka, got mad at an anime for doing things incorrectly, and decided, fuck it, I'll do it myself with blackjack and hookers. As a primer to what the story is, just listen to what follows. The birth of the Waffegeist and the mother of rifles. After the First World War, a war no one was prepared to deal with, the after effects came into play in horrifying manners all across the survivors of the conflict. Soldiers, having been separated during artillery or mortar strikes over no man's land, found themselves alone and out of their minds with fear, stuck out in the mud as explosions and shrapnel rained down around them. Troopers were no longer firing in unison as a line formation, but one-on-one, and their minds were becoming riddled with guilt over surviving as their friends were cut down around them, or the mental effect of mowing down lines of men with machine guns as they ran wildly towards trench lines. The fallout was horrible, and means to dampening those effects were sought after by a multitude of countries. The answer came from the combined effort on 1921 from the Nordic countries and Germany, following the trail of a particular ritual that was used to imbibe swords and other such weapons with the spirits of elementals, an ancient rite to boost the combat power of warriors. First trials of the ritual found that the elementals were too unruly in the form of rifles, causing harm to the user, or simply bursting the rifle in flames, or covering it in sheets of ice. There is also an issue of elementals not wanting to bond with their wielder, some even consuming the body and leaving not even the bones behind. A scientist named Dr. Onker sought long and hard for an alternative, and dug further into the text retrieved from the icy waste of the north. Dr. Onker found a small section where he was able to probe into the spiritual unknown at the cost of small portions of blood from his body. With each drop, Dr. Onker delved his mind into the abyss, asking and searching for something, anything that could help him and his country. Time was coming short for his deadline, and there were odd political movements in the German government. It was in the darkness that Dr. Onker heard a voice call out to him, his mind being wrapped with sheets of spiritual honey, soul gleaming with warmth as the words wrapped around the very essence of himself that he tossed so carelessly into the unknown. I could be of assistance. Something pressed against his forehead, soft and warm, before he was pushed out of the realm of spirits and back into his body. In his mind, he knew he had to find a weapon of his country, a weapon of personal value and attachment, and he raced home to grab his very own ᴅᴏ 98. What became of the rifle after the binding, no one was prepared for. Instead of a surly elemental hurling insults and projectiles at them, a woman of almost unnatural beauty stepped from the pedestal the rifle had laid upon merely minutes before, her uniform so crisp and clean that it was almost unnatural. She introduced herself as the mother of rifles, and that she had been sent as the first envoy by the Great Mother to oversee the implementation of the souls of her sisters and bind Dr. Onker to what would be simply called the contract. She was also sent to instruct the Germans and their allies on where to find the greater areas of binding, places where the veil between the many worlds was thinner, and greater spirits of the Great Mother will be able to infiltrate the layers of being and join them on this plane. What the contract was, or what the Great Mother actually is, was never found out, as Dr. Onker took the secret all the way to his grave after he refused to tell the new Nazi regime that sprung up later in the 1930s. After his death, only the mother of rifles knew, and she took orders from no one. Once the ability of finding these places of binding was let loose upon the world at the end of the 1940s, every country with the manufacturing ability began to tap into their region's thin space, some small skirmishes even breaking out over control of them. Within a short span of time, each country was pumping out what their mother of rifles had long ago named Waffegeist, the weapon spirits, and it changed warfare instrumentally from that point onwards. Where there was once one soldier, now stood two. The weapon of the soldier, being able to be a force modifier, revolutionized modern combat, as they proved to be an instrumental tool for the Germans, but not enough to secure the victory they sought. Now a medic's sidearm could help them haul soldiers to safety. An infantryman's rifles could help them dig emplacements or haul water, while crew-served weapons could help haul ammunition through the battlefield. Their worries and guilt became shared between soldier and rifle, increasing the efficiency of platoon-sized and battalion-sized elements due to decreasing the need for counselings and mental welfare checks. There were small hiccups that were dealt with due to the regulations that have been put into place, with much delegation from the mother of rifles herself. As with all new technology, there was discrepancies that could not be overlooked, and all things have their problems, even magical rifles. It became a problem with rifles that could not be easily shared amongst troops. While some rifles were fine with it, others found it degrading and would refuse to be operated by other soldiers besides their designated shooter. The same went for when a Waffegeist would lose their designated shooter, their emotional state being so distraught that they would stay in rifle form, refusing counsel from other rifles or designated superiors appointed by the mother of rifles. The first rifle documented to feel these effects was a Kar-98, her designated shooter having been crushed by falling of barrels while unloading supplies during training some years before the Russian offensive in World War II. Her mood became so foul and unwieldy that the spirit itself began to leak its own moroseness in her surroundings, cursing some soldiers to have bad luck befall them and a lot of other rifles to malfunction. The mother of rifles, seeing one of the war daughters in pain, consulted with whom she would tell none of, and came to the German army with an answer. An anvil of sorrow was crafted, and with it a hammer inscribed with ancient runes of breaking, so that the spirit would be released peacefully and sent back to the immortal plane to be rid of their sorrow and pain. If it was not done so on the anvil of sorrow, and a hammer with the correct runes, the Waffegeist would be torn asunder and tossed into the realm of darkness, never to see the light again until found by the Great Mother after extreme lengths of time. The anvil and hammer were placed in what would be called Serenity Gardens, usually in the middle of military graveyards. The mother of rifles thought it would be fitting this way for a rifle to be released near those whom they served so diligently. The Kar-98 was brought from the armory where she was kept, the armorer actually having a shelf crack onto his head while holding her, and had her bolt shattered that very afternoon the anvil was installed, the bolt being where the majority of the spirit was stored. Her broken bolt and stock were buried at Order Arms beside her designated shooter, her soul finally at rest with whom she lost. The hammer and anvils installed around the world would see much sorrow and use at the end of World War II, and the anvils would never stop keening from then on in. War is a taxing thing, and loss much more so. And that's the primer of the Waffegeist universe that I had set up in my drunken vodka-induced rage. Folks seem to like it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading stories from the big paste bins we would do in the writing generals we would do on /K. I'm going to try to avoid the smutty ones and try and focus on the ones with the good stories. But I think you guys will get a good kick out of these, and we're going to start off the bat with Anti-Tank Annie. I think this one a lot of you will really enjoy reading and just having some nice background noise to listen to. Of course, if you like these stories and others like them, be sure to subscribe to Neckbeardia and click the bell icon so you know when videos are released through the week. Additionally, be sure to join the Discord page of us on Neckbeardia. That way you can come talk to us and all kinds of fun stuff, and maybe even tell us some stories you have you want to have told by a narrator. Till I see you next time with a brand new story, this has been Guardbro, and I will see you next time.
All those moments will be lost in time.